Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani, and on a week where we went back and talked about the history of Michael Therrien calling the Penguins soft, we have the Steelers, who ended the season with 5 straight losses. We have so much to unpack. It clearly is our #1, #2, #5 topic on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. And here to debate all the issues with you is your panel tonight. We have Andrew Fillipponi from the PM team at 93.7 The Fan. To his left is Mark Kaboly from the Pat McAfee Show. And to his left is Brian Batko, beat writer for the Steelers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. So let's just start right at the beginning here. Brian, I'll start with you. Poorly coached, poorly constructed. What is this roster? What is this situation going on with the Steelers?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those feelings of deja vu, Groundhog Day after that game. And I can't believe it happened again. The flat starts every single time now they get to the postseason. I wasn't expecting them to win, but I didn't expect them to follow that same trite script now. And it was really bad. Not only did they lose, the Ravens, they basically beat them like they had somewhere to be, like they had a Saturday night after party to get to. We'll just run 13 straight times on this drive. It's only the Steelers. They can't stop us.
It's just out of control, Pomp. I mean, I didn't see this coming. I thought they'd have a little bit of fight into them, and they just didn't.
You picked them to win.
I know. I honestly felt that this team was going to come out and get back to their midseason form, and I was obviously 100% wrong. What bothers me and what should bother them is just defensively. I mean, we're talking about $150, $160 million defense where you have stars everywhere. It's just getting absolutely boat raced up and down that field when you knew darn well what they were going to do. It's just there's many, many problems. You might want to start with Mike Tomlin, but there's many beyond that as well.
Well, Mike might get a raise because he finally held an opponent under 30 in a playoff game. No, I mean, I don't see how you couldn't see it coming. Because he either went by the historical data, which was every time they're in a playoff game, they start slow, they get blown out, they try to dig themselves out of a hole and just make the optics of the final score look better than the game actually was.
It's held true every single time.
Or you just went by what they had done the last month of the season. Either way, they looked like they were DOA going into this game. The most ridiculous thing to me was that people thought, sorry, Mark, that the Ravens were going to bring this out of them. That Baltimore, the hottest team in the league, like the Steelers in 05, was going to somehow, the light bulb was going to go on and trigger something that we haven't seen from this team in a very long time. So I've long subscribed to the theory with them in the playoffs. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And it's not twice anymore, Bob. It's like, what's the fancy way to say 5 times in Old English? I don't know.
6 times.
6 times.
6 times.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, and it's a repeat stuff all over again. Brian, I want to ask you about the situation with head coach.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure out there. Jerry Dulac of your paper has reported that Mike Tomlin will be back. I mean, he just signed a 3-year deal for $48 million. I don't think anyone thought they were going to just move on from that. But if that's the case, what do they do with this coaching staff? Somebody's got to pay the price for this in terms of they haven't done what they're supposed to do.
I mean, it happens all around the league when teams don't make the playoffs and they underachieve, don't perform up to expectations. There are going to be fall guys, whether that's coordinators or position coaches. I think there are only so many roads you can go down now. With the Steelers, Arthur Smith, the offensive coordinator, he's only had 1 year on the job. They don't typically cut ties with somebody that soon into a tenure. There's only so many variables that you can swap out now in this experiment, and it's got to be getting a lot tougher to justify the common denominator, and that's Mike Tomlin at the top. They've changed quarterbacks. They've got a new GM. They've changed offensive play callers. They've changed O-linemen. They've invested draft resources. I mean, I guess they'll try to find some way to spin it, but it's getting more difficult by the year.
I have a perfect plan. I don't think Art's going to call me and ask me my opinion here. I think Mike Tomlin needs to have some power taken away from him. When I say that, I'm talking about meddling, and I'm using that word, I guess, freely here in the offensive and defensive game plans. I mean, you've seen coaches in the past, head coaches back off of that and let those guys do what they do. When you have him in there and you see it from Hard Knocks, you hear it from all over the place that he always has his fingers into everything. He needs to be told by Art Rooney, you're coming back, you let these guys do their job because whatever's happening right now is not working. And I think it's partly because he's into everything. He can't be into everything and this be successful.
I think they've paid him to be the czar of everything. When you're making almost $20 million a year, what do? You pay more and you ask for less? That's not how it works. You pay more because you ask or demand more from the person. He's usurped, I think, all the power, most of the power, as far as the domain over the coaching staff for sure. And then I think the roster building has a lot to do with him. He'll be in Mobile, he'll be right on the field with players in a few. Their drafting has not been good. I mean, we could do a whole segment on that if we wanted to. That's another reason why they're in this mediocre purgatory state.
They hire these guys, Pony, to be experts on this. The front office guys, the scout guys, the coordinator guys. You can't have him continuously.
Mark, you say
put
though,
himself
okay,
into
I'll step back. I'll let you work it. I'll leave you to your own devices. He hired Matt Canada.
And he stuck with
I don't
them.
care.
And he stuck with
I don't care how far away he stood from that guy. He was not going to do a good job as offensive coordinator. Where's Randy Fichtner worked since he got fired? Nowhere. He doesn't make good hires. Can we just say that in plain English out loud?
That's been my one criticism of him all along.
Come on now.
Is that he's in charge of his coaching staff.
So where does the owner come? The owner comes in and says, no, we're changing things. We can't change you because it's not going to look good, and that's not what we do, but we have to change something.
Why wouldn't it look good? They haven't won a playoff game since 2016.
That's just how they work.
And you've got to look at the gap. The gap between the Ravens and the Steelers right now wasn't just on display in 28-14. The Ravens, they're draft picks, they evaluate them well. They develop them. Most of their guys are homegrown. They become Pro Bowlers and all pros. Their assistant coaches go on to get head coaching jobs. Their executives get GM interviews. You're just not seeing that with the Steelers. So I think on a macro level and on a micro level, they've surpassed them in the division.
And I came to the conclusion, too. I thought that, Mike Tomlin's insistent on not turning the ball over became what you see in the first half of games, right? You see them come out, play almost prevent offense on all of these occasions. To me, if you live and die by turnovers, you're not going to win a lot of games.
The defense is too reliant on them as well.
Right, you can't rely on them. Let's say there are no turnovers, right? You have to win a game straight up with no turnovers.
I asked TJ Watt in the locker room the other day, are you guys maybe too reliant on getting those takeaways? And he looked at me as if I suggested he should read from right to left because that's just what they're built on. Whatever happened to be a stout defense that makes a team punt to you every now and again.
Yeah, we got to take a break here on that note. And when we come back, we're going to play a little game of who stays and who goes. That's coming up next because it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason here for the Steelers, who lose yesterday 28-14, 5 losses in a row. Their season is over. We're back. All right, welcome back. Number one Cochran Sports Showdown. We're going to play a little segment called Back or Not Back. I'll ask these guys a name of a player. You tell me back or not back, and then we'll go back and delve into it. All right, Andrew, we'll start with you on this one. Russell Wilson, back or not back?
Not back.
Back.
Not back.
Justin Fields?
Back.
Not back.
Back.
George Pickens?
Not back.
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 Okay. Najee Harris?
Not back. No way.
Not back.
In a different time zone.
All right, we'll go into those 4 because there are other names on this list, and I'm sure those are smaller potatoes compared to these guys. We'll start with Russell Wilson. You said not back. Why not back?
Because you're ceiling with him. You know what it is now. Mark's already making gestures over here because that's his man crush, like mine was Kenny Pickett. Look,
Hey now.
in what universe do quarterbacks get better in their late 30s and early 40s? Okay, yeah, Tom Brady hoodwinked the world on this and won Super Bowls in his 40s. I saw Russell Wilson regress, and I'm sorry, I saw Ben do this in 2020 in the playoff game against Cleveland. I'm not going to put stock in hollow statistics when you're down 21-0 and he starts making plays on third down when they're playing a prevent defense. I'm just not. And so I think he's only going to get worse given his age, injury concerns. No, I don't want him back next year, and I think they're smart enough to do the same thing.
My question is then, if you don't want him back, what is the better option? Okay, there is none. If you're telling me Kirk Cousins, no. If you're telling me
better option than what, Mark? Losing the first round of the playoffs again by 3 touchdowns?
You saw that he still has the ability to make throws.
To lose by 3 touchdowns in the playoffs,
and
or 2.
you really, really believe that was his fault yesterday after watching that defense play?
So he gets no blame for the first 30 minutes of the game?
But don't you, Mark, don't you kick the can down the road when it comes to your future quarterback?
I'm not
if you bring him,
signing him for 3 years, 8 years.
But you think he's going to take less?
Mark, he scored 14 points. What are you talking about?
You don't
here?
think he's
Bring
going
him
to?
back.
Okay.
What are you
They scored 14.
Sooner or later, you have to address the question, don't you, Brian?
I'll break the tie.
Who is your quarterback down the road?
I'll break the tie. I'm with Pony here. I think we've seen pretty much what Russ is, and not only do I agree with the regression aspect. I mean, he outperformed my expectations, don't get me wrong. But once the road got tough with the better defenses on their schedule, yeah, you kind of saw him become what he is and what he did last night. I mean, he's not the player he used to be. He doesn't have the same improvisational ad-lib ability that made him so great earlier in his career. With Justin Fields, who I know we're going to get to next, I can still squint and kind of see it if he puts it all together.
Didn't we not just talk about how bad this team has played over the month defensively, allowing 4 touchdowns a game, 500 yards?
That's
and
the
listen,
next
we're
segment.
talking about this guy you saw he still has the arm to be able to make the throws. Who do you bring in?
He'd be
Nobody's
great in the
telling
flag
me this.
football league.
You want Cal Allen?
Mark,
Is that your guy?
the arm to make the throws, he doesn't use the intermediate part of the field or the middle of the field whatsoever.
We already said that Mike Tomlin says he doesn't want to have
Well, then
turnovers,
why didn't he
so
do
he's
that in
throwing the
Denver
ball.
either? Why didn't he want to use that part of the field there? Did Sean Payton give him the same edict? Both of those coaches think alike, I guess, on Russ?
So
maybe it's the fact that he's 5'9" and he can't see over the line.
You throw the ball 4 times across the middle, all of a sudden he makes all the difference.
I think it opens things up. Okay, it doesn't. Why are you paying Pat Fryermuth $15 million
Why?
a year?
First of all, I also think the scheming here has been substandard all the way through. They haven't schemed well at all. That goes on the coaching staff.
Yeah, he looked great in that 2-minute drill against Cincinnati, too, Mark. He looked
Let's
like a
bring
real
Sam Darnold
I got to get on to 2 other names here before we go to a break, and one of them is George Pickens. And you said, yes, he will be back, Brian. Why?
I think I might have said no last time I was on this very show, but it's so week to week with him. He played well last night for the most part, other than the OPI penalty that wiped out a big play. He had the Instagram
So you think
post
he's getting an
after the
extension?
game. No,
That's a
not
different
necessarily.
question.
Not
That's a different
necessarily.
question.
I think the thing's going to blow up then if they
It
don't do
could.
that.
It could, but
They could bring him back for 1 year and then franchise him if they want, don't they?
they could. They have that. They have that club
There's
in their
no
bag if
urgency
they
on
want
a
to
new
use it.
deal for him, is there, Mark?
I think so, because like
too.
Pony said, I mean, do you want to take that chance of getting into the season and him just going haywire
Well, why
once
would
again?
you invest in that anyway then?
He does
If
it
that's-
anyway. So
The only good thing about this is the free agency is before you really need to make a decision here. So if they're able to go find, say, for sakes, T. Higgins, then you can make that move maybe in the draft.
Look,
move him.
I don't think Art is going to tell Mike that he can't, have control over his coaching staff. The one thing I can see him doing and telling Omar and Mike is, based on this guy's behavioral problems and performance, I don't want to reward him with a $100 million contract. I can 100% see that. And then you can make up your mind. You can have him in a lame duck situation, or you can trade him. But I think the owner could step in there and say, we're not rewarding this player.
We have to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to play the same drill, this time only on defense. Don't go away. It's the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We're continuing now with our little drill called Back or Not Back. And this time it's on defense. And Brian Batko, we'll start with you. Larry Ogunjobi, back or not back?
not back. I don't think he should have been back this year.
Absolutely not.
No, he's gone.
Minka Fitzpatrick.
I'm still going to say back.
Yeah, I don't think they have much choice, money-wise. Cap hit.
I'm going to say back, but I don't want to.
But you have to. But you say back.
Yeah.
All right. Finally, TJ Watt, who has a year left.
Back.
I think he'll be back, but I think you're going to keep an eye on something there.
A little tease, but we'll
Back.
get to that. So everybody says back, but what does that mean? Because, and the only reason I say, you look at the age factor, and if they're trying to, and I know you brought this up, Andrew, on your show last week, what do you get if you make a trade offer for him and someone overpowers you with a trade that you just can't say no to? Would that happen? Could that happen? And how do they respond?
I'm just looking at the other way of him being extremely, extremely frustrated. I mean, I don't know any inside information on there. I'm just throwing it out there. At what point does he say, I want out, I want to go win somewhere like my brother did?
Yeah,
or try to win.
yeah,
I mean, that has to be a part of it.
I was actually thinking that last night, too. I mean, I've long been in the camp. I don't think he'd ever wear another helmet other than the Steelers. They wouldn't want him to. But, yeah, to your point, Mark, maybe it says, okay, we've been through this enough times now in the playoffs. Maybe it's not ever going to happen for me here.
See, I think, by the way, on Watt, though, he's got to be culpable and take some responsibility and account. I'm not saying he didn't, but when we're looking at this team's failure in the 5-game stretch, he played. Okay, so if he really had a bad ankle,
It was more than that.
okay, if it was more than that, then they should have held him out, and that's back on the coaches. The player should not dictate, hey, I'm playing. Oh, well, it's your call. No, it's not. The coach has got to be the bigger person there and say, we need you at close to 100% for the playoffs. 0 tackles, 0 assisted tackles, no sacks. I mean,
Since the final drive of the Christmas Day game. He hasn't had it.
Well, he did have the strip sack against the Bengals wiped out by a holding call.
But he
in the
didn't look like
secondary.
T.J. Watt. He got shut down in this game.
He did.
It's-
All right, Minka Fitzpatrick, Brian, and I say this only because it seems to me that he was told to do something that maybe didn't suit his skill set. I would have preferred him being one of those game record kind of guys, but it seemed like he was always back. And even at that, there were missed plays over there. So was that his fault, their fault? And so you say he will be back?
Yeah, that's what he wants to do, though, Bob. He wants to be the center fielder. He thinks that's the best use of his skill sets. And
But we saw no difference making plays.
I agree. I don't know if he's lost a step. I don't know if teams have become better at avoiding him, but it seems like those instinctual splash plays that he was so good at are just completely gone from his game.
I say, who cares what he wants? If it's best for the team to be able to win, he should be able to go back there and do what's being asked of him and not pout and not play hero ball and not try to do more than he's expected to do. So that's half on him if he feels like I shouldn't be playing there. I mean, hey, what's bigger, the team or you? And he must think it's him.
Well, I'm sorry about that thing, what Brian said. So why then, if he liked the way he was being used, why when he made the Pro Bowl did he make it sound like he was disappointed in the way that they had utilized him this year? He was like shocked that he had gotten any kind of acknowledgement or recognition.
I think he was down on himself. I think that was more of a self-deprecating comment that he didn't really make the splash plays that should get somebody into the
Baltimore has a great quarterback who's going to win his third MVP probably based on how the All-Pro team went. They do something, though, that Mike Tomlin, I think, fails to do. They make in-season adjustments. They fired a coordinator and won a Super Bowl. They scrapped an offense and said, Flacco, you're on the bench, and put Lamar in. And then look at what they did with Kyle Hamilton. Yeah. It was the exact opposite. Hamilton was doing everything, and they said, you know what, screw that. We're going to put you back and play center field. And that change made a huge impact on their defense. Where are those moves with this team? They didn't burn the boats yesterday. Their big trick was a friggin' flea flicker, and Justin Fields out there for what, 2 plays?
Yeah, 2
Come
snaps.
on, man.
And I was going to say, I mean, you mentioned the in-season adjustments. Where were the in-game adjustments from the defensive coaching staff?
None.
Yesterday, I mean, they stayed in that single high safety with Minka.
Sutton, Bob.
Well, that was my next thing. Cam Sutton. Why is he even playing based on this? Seriously, you guys, when you scratch your heads.
All that says to me is that they don't really like Beanie Bishop.
Well, I was going to say they just
How about Corey Trice? I thought he did a pretty good job last week, given the circumstance.
They completely undervalue that slot cornerback position, and they essentially have tried to get by with a who's who of no-namers and undrafted guys since Mike Hilton left in free agency.
Well, there are problems, and there are many problems. You heard Chuck Noll talk about that, and they got it now here in 2024. We haven't seen this sort of finish since 1969. When we come back, we'll have more right here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, Penn State, they beat SMU, they beat Boise State, they could not beat Notre Dame. Brian, what's your takeaway of Penn State in this playoff series?
I mean, hey, good season for them, but it's always going to be another one of those nearly getting over the hump. A what if for James Franklin. And Abdul Carter was amazing as an edge rusher for them. Drew Aller, the quarterback, I mean, everybody's going to be looking at him in that big mistake.
Yeah. At least we know one thing. The Steelers aren't going to go to State College and get their next wide receiver, right? No catches for the wide receivers. I mean, the Penn State fans have to be kicking themselves. They had that game in hand, or at least head that way in the first half.
I thought they should have won it.
Well, that's why there's been this big pushback from Penn State fans. I've heard from enough of them where they said, lay off James Franklin for this game. There was less than a minute left. They had the ball at their own 13-yard line. What did they think they were going to do in a tie game there? With no wide receivers, like Mark said, they're going to go 60 yards downfield and set up a game-winning field goal. If they just run the ball and force Notre Dame to use their timeouts and play for overtime, I think they win.
That first down played 5 yards instead of 12, they might win.
My point is, I don't think Aller should have been put in that position to throw the game away right there at all.
Well,
based on how the game had gone, Bob.
No, what you said is 13-yard line. That was the key to me. When I saw it that deep, I'm thinking they better not make mistakes here and try to, it's commendable, Brian, to try to win a game. But when you're that deep in your own zone, and you know that
Notre Dame's got one of the best secondaries in the country, and you got no wide receivers.
Well, I was going to run the ball and see what happened. If I break a run, okay, fine, we'll do it real quick. Now you have national championship game. Who do you like? Notre Dame, Ohio State.
Notre Dame just seemed like they expended so much energy and left pretty much everything they had out there to beat Penn State. They've got a lot of injuries. I think the Buckeyes will win this pretty handily.
For the first time in the history of college football, both lose. Oh, that's just what I'm hoping, but
qualification.
Ohio State will win.
I think Cam Hayward deserves nice.
I'm sure
I'm rooting for Ohio
He needs something. That guy played
You don't think
so
he does?
well.
I bet he's going to watch it with his
Well, I think he'd much rather be
Silver
playing.
on.
Yeah, he should. They need him. He still can play at a very high level. All right, before we go here, I want to tell you something. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, don't settle for anything less. The #1 Cochran Kia, clearly better car buying experience. You can enjoy exclusive clear-cut pricing where you get their most competitive offer up front, and you can take advantage of exceptional lease and finance rates. And choose from a lineup of nearly 200 new models. You don't find that everywhere. Experience clearly better car buying at #1 Cochran Kia, in-store, online. You could do it both. Go to CochranKia.com. Welcome back. We're talking about next week in the AFC. Interesting games. You have Kansas City hosting Houston, and you also have Baltimore at Buffalo. Pony, I like Baltimore. I like Baltimore to win it all, actually. I'll say you that. I think I told you.
Come on.
I do. They're that good, I think. What's your take?
I think that Buffalo will win, and I think that Kansas City will win. So those guys will meet up.
So no Baltimore for you.
Championship game like they did in 2020.
Okay, Mark?
Baltimore already destroyed Buffalo once.
Yeah, but where was that game, Mark?
That doesn't really matter to me.
Well, Baltimore destroyed Pittsburgh, and you picked the Steelers to beat
You
them.
know what? You have any room
need
to
a pick.
talk about
Well,
bad
I got to
things.
get my licks in while I can here, Mark.
So you like?
I like Baltimore and Kansas City.
Chiefs coast past the Texans. Bills and Ravens beat each other up pretty good. Bills win it, but then the Chiefs go on to the Super Bowl
All right,
again.
that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us. We have always a lot to talk about here on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Thank you for joining us.